Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for September 17th, 2015 to order. Before we begin the business portion of our meeting, I'd like to give Janice Powers the floor to speak.
We found out this week that our main staff support person, Kathy Kessler, has retired after 36 years of service with the City of Oklahoma City, and she is a presence that will indeed be missed. I've known Kathy for an embarrassingly long period of time. I started practicing law in the early 80s, principally here at City Hall in front of the City Council, Planning Commission, and occasionally the Board of Adjustment. And so I've experienced her on both sides of the horseshoe, and she has always been just unfailingly generous with her time and knowledge. She is a cheerful presence and was a very, very knowledgeable aide to all of us. I told her jokingly in an email that I would never have taken this position if I had thought she was going to retire on us. We really, I think, all feel like she really had our back in terms of being able to provide us with the information that we need to do what we do and do a good job of it. So she has really been kind of the institutional memory of the Board of Adjustment for quite some time, and she will indeed very much be missed. She says she's on to her next great adventure, and we wish her the very best of everything in that.
Thank you, Janice. Our next order of business is to receive the minutes of the September 3rd meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Register your vote. Minutes are received. Do we have any continuance requests or withdrawals from staff? Hearing none. Do we have any continuance requests or withdrawals from the public? Hearing none. We'll call our first case.
Item 1 is case number 14122, request for variance to permit an additional access drive on Western Avenue located at 12301 Southwestern.
Is the applicant here? Please come to the microphone and pull the microphone down where we can hear you and give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Ali Gandhiabadi. We bought a piece of property on Southwestern and Southwestern 119th. Originally, this property was bought to put a super Target on the side. And due to the fact that they did not develop the property, we bought it. We sold the back part of it to an apartment complex, which they used one of the entrance as a boulevard to use for the apartment complex, and the other one is using as an emergency secondary exit. So there are about one lot in the front that we like to develop it for a shopping center, and we would like to have an entrance in the middle of this land, which is about 400 feet of frontage it has, and it does meet the requirement of City of Oklahoma City for a 200 feet separation between each entry. We would like to see if the Commission would permit us to have this middle entrance to develop our shopping center.
This was a kind of a puzzling application for me, I have to say. Generally speaking, I think all of the requirements that are set out in the PUD are deemed to have been negotiated, and I always have kind of a negative approach to requests for variance from negotiated items. So initially my thought about it was not positive, I must say. And I thought, well, if it's a PUD and it doesn't allow for this, then, they need to rezone it rather than come and do this. And after really looking at it, I think that's probably where I still am, although I would like to hear a little bit from staff on this. While it says in the application that the PUD was initially for another use, a big box use, clearly it allows the uses that have been made of it, or it would have had to go through some sort of revision in the PUD process. They also say that now there's less traffic, and that's why they need more access, which I find puzzling. And it seems to me that they're sort of speculating about what their traffic requirements would be, which is not, in my view, a very good way to go about this. PUD 1016 is not that old a PUD. I think that the choices that we make, especially on Planning Commission, about where access goes and how it lines up with other accesses on streets is probably more relevant here than what the PUD provides. And so I would kind of like some input from staff about whether this application is premature in view of the use they want to make of the property, whether they need to wait and see if it's a traffic issue or not, and whether if they were granted the relief they request, it would cause any problems along Western with respect to accesses from other properties.
Well, Western is an arterial street, which is, its purpose is to carry large volumes of traffic. And the more drives you put on an arterial street, you're going to slow that traffic down, and you're going to have turning movements that are possibly hazardous. It's not a whole lot dissimilar traffic-wise, the way it's developed, than what it could have been developed. Initially, like you said, it was for a super target. Super target's gone, and instead we're having a large apartment complex. The traffic amounts are not horribly different between those two.
I had a question too. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You also had an unfavorable consideration regarding the existing access appears to be adequate to serve the property in question. Could you discuss that a little bit?
Right. Well, it's not a large piece of property by any means, and they have a drive along the north, which is the main drive coming in to serve the apartments. And they have an access drive off of that, and then the drive along the south is another drive for the apartments, and they have an access point off of that. So they really have two access points for the entire property already.
If I may say something, the property, the boulevard has got a median in the middle. So it is kind of difficult when someone wants to come into the boulevard and turn into the shopping center, they automatically backing up the traffic going south because there would not be enough queuing turn to turn into the shopping center. And the same thing when they're coming in from south and they want to turn into the shopping center, they would miss it because there is no drive for them to turn into a shopping center. They're going to have to come and use the boulevard, and when they turn in to use the boulevard, and if there is a car coming in from the north and wants to turn in, it would create a very congested traffic on Western because one is coming in from the north and one is coming in from the south, and there is not enough queuing turn or enough lane on the boulevard to turn into a shopping center. So basically, the two exit entrance that was allowed at the time that the PUD was developed was just for the super target, which was going to be set about 500 feet deep in the shopping center. And to do so, that's all they needed it. They didn't need any more than two entrances. So to develop it for something different other than the super target, the property had to have more than two entrances to be able to use it adequately. Like right now, we have about 400 to 450 feet of frontage on Western that has absolutely no entrance to do anything with. And all the entrance that it would be using, it would be the boulevard, which is really not adequate because the traffic is going to be totally congested to trying to turn into it. And it would really make sense to have another one in the middle, because to develop the property, to have some kind of a development that really attracts people to Southside Oklahoma City, so they won't be going all to Moore, Oklahoma, because if you look at Moore, they suck every business that possibly Southside Oklahoma City can have, it goes to more. People all go to more, and they're all congested over there, and they're constantly putting more and more and more building, where we need to keep our business on the south side of Oklahoma City, where we lack enough quite a bit of retail that can generate some income for the south side, and, you know, and our families or our business and our money doesn't go to the more, to more.
Is there anything preventing you from making the curb cut in the median there, the divided median, or the entrance into your shopping center wider?
The median, you can only cut it for a one car. But the problem would be if the cars are going to, like I said, if you're traveling south and you want to turn into the shopping center, you don't have enough queue and turn. You're probably going to enter into the boulevard, and half of your car probably be still sticking out on the Western Avenue.
Well, how far away is the curb cut in the center of the boulevard median from the street?
It's about, I would say about 6-7 feet, somewhere around there.
6 to 7 feet?
Yeah.
From the drawing, it looks significantly deeper than that.
Is it?
It looks significantly deeper than that.
That's just my estimate. But, you know, we really don't think that the boulevard entrance to a shopping center is adequate, because then the shopping center wouldn't have any identification whatsoever. It would be just like we are using a secondary exit to enter a shopping center that it is going to be about 24,000 square feet with, you know, with a lot of nice things in there, you know, modern look that we need for a south side of Oklahoma City. We need a lot of shops that put in different things, not just a mortar and a brick and a metal building. We don't need some of those. We need some extra stuff. We need things that attract people now to come to shop with us. You know, we don't...
I understand that accessibility is an important attribute of shopping centers. I get it. I also understand that visibility and signage and all those things are also important.
Yes.
You've got direct frontage on the Western Avenue. I think when I looked at this, my biggest concern is I look at streets like North May Avenue currently, where you've got a 4-lane road with no dividing center turn lane, and the more curb cuts you put on and off that road, the more congestion it creates. And that's what city staff seeks to avoid here, is the creation, frankly, of another North May Avenue. I'm concerned, because there's no center turn lane here, that we need to honor the PUD, the way that it was drafted, and keep those curb cuts in line. There's curb cuts in the center on the east side of the road that your curb cut would directly conflict with for other businesses. How those curb cuts got there are not for me to look at today, but when I examine this, adding this curb cut is going to complicate matters, in my view, not improve them. I think that your application and the argument that curb cut on the North Boulevard Drive is going to create more problem than it helps, I think you can subvert some of that issue by trying to address that with your drive that enters in onto the north side. And it looks to me like, I can't guess, I didn't draw this, and I don't have a larger plan to scale to show me how much distance I've really got.
About 200. It's about center to center of each. Our center drive is going to be 200 feet, center to center. About 200 feet, exactly, the requirement of City of Oklahoma City. From the boulevard to ours is 200 feet. We have 450 feet of frontage.
Mm-hmm.
That
Where
median cut, it's about 90 feet back west of Western.
Yeah, that's, I mean, if the average car is 18 feet long, you know, you got a reasonable queuing lane there. And especially if you consider that one of those cars is going to be able to set in the lane. And let's remember, too, you've got an apartment complex to the west, which is what this boulevard is really designed to accommodate. That's not steady traffic. You're going to have times when it's congested, you know, i.e. people coming and going from work. But it's not like behind there is another shopping center or a Super Target where you're going to have people coming and going. It makes me, I understand why you would come and ask for it. I get it. I also understand that in a positive note in staff's report that the new drive would still meet the 200-foot requirement. My concern is, given the existing infrastructure that's there on Western, that the city did this for a reason. I'm with Janice and the PUD, and that is The last thing we need is Southwestern to become North May. And so for that reason, I really can't support the application.
I'm going to move for denial.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to deny the application. Register your vote. So you are denied.
Item 2, case number 14123, request of JKS Construction for a variance to permit a single-family residence encroaching a 40-foot platted front building line at 8701 Bella Circle.
Just give us your name and address for the record.
Jim Kinder, JKS Construction, 2720 Northwest 24th, Newcastle.
Go ahead and speak to your application.
Well, whenever the stem wall was laid out, there were several points that were missing, and so whenever he measured for the setback, he got it right other than the ones that wasn't there, and no one ever caught it until it was already built and we had a CO.
Any objection from any of the neighbors that you're aware of?
No.
Anybody
And
here
we
to,
own most of the stuff around.
okay. Anybody here to speak on this application?
Well, we're going to need you to lift that house up, and we're going to need you to move it 6 feet. You think you can do that by tomorrow at noon?
It'd be difficult, but, maybe. No. Let me tell you this, 300 houses, never had this happen.
Yeah. I would say, unfortunately, we actually see a lot of these, and I'm wondering if there's something that we could not be doing at the permit level to try and eliminate that. I mean, we're going to grant the variance.
Cul-de-sacs are generally the culprit,
I know.
And I think they're just difficult.
That little nook.
Hard to know what you're measuring from and to.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, something to consider, but with that, I'll move to approve the application.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Register your vote. You are approved. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Item 3, case number 14124, request of Kevin Wells for a variance to allow 2 dwellings on 1 lot located at 2521 East Britton Road.
Kevin Wells, 2521 East Britton Road.
Okay.
I'm asking for a variance to allow me to build a new house. This old house will never be there once the new one is built. I'm just asking to stay in that house until it is built. There's woods all around this house, and there wouldn't be anything there to keep if we wasn't on the property.
Are you ready to start construction as soon as you're approved?
Yes,
Do you anticipate how long it will take to build your new house?
that I'd have to ask to build it about 6 to 7 months, probably.
I would think, probably 12 to 18 months is a reasonable thing to consider to give them adequate time to.
Obviously, no one is signed to speak in opposition or...
I don't know of anybody here to speak on this application.
They're here to support me, my neighbors.
You're there to support him, okay.
Based on my general rule of thumb with, home improvement projects, is that it costs at least a third more than you think it will and takes at least a third longer. I would recommend that we put maybe a 2-year limitation on it. And I will move approval with that 2-year limitation.
What they're saying is they're going to give you 2 years to go ahead and plan for and build your new home, and then go ahead and take down the existing home. Is that
Hope it don't
satisfactory?
take me 2 years.
2 years or less.
we hope
Yeah,
not, but-
you're ready. Okay.
Fickle Oklahoma weather, right?
I know. Did I hear a motion?
Second.
And a second, so register your vote. You're approved. Good luck with your new home.
Thank you.
Item 4, case number 14125, request of Capital Distributing for a variance to the landscaping requirements located at 421 North Portland Avenue.
Good afternoon. My name is Gordon Green. I'm the principal owner of Capital Distributing at 421 North Portland Avenue. Would it be appropriate if I gave you a new handout, just with better pictures of the aerial that you have listed? It's quite old. Just a quick background, Capital Distributing is a beer wholesalership, and the original building was built by Unisource Paper back in 1996. Unisource paper at the time, which you'll see is the existing building there, complied with all of the landscaping and parking requirements at that time for their particular use. From what I understand, given the size of our building and expansion, the only requirement we have is about 68 parking spaces, and the parking spaces are the ones that are, from, again, my ignorance, predicating the fact that we need to increase our landscaping. So if you look in the handout I just had, you'll see the original landscape plan. You'll actually see the aerial photos of the front of the building, which is the only thing that has public access. What we're proposing to do is we're in the middle of construction right now of the addition of 102 square feet, and then you'll see the area in the back that says proposed third phase. So again, we feel we're at density on planting in the front of the building, and anywhere in the back of the building is going to be concrete and or warehouse facilities at this point. So we're asking for the variance not to have to increase any landscaping planting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I had a question. You had mentioned in your request or other plantings or other that we might suggest. Have you put together an alternate proposal where you could put the designated plantings given your anticipated building expansion?
We have not, because I didn't know, really what this procedure would be. Again, when you look at what is access in the front, everything behind the building is 100%, industrial space for the most part from all sides surrounding us. Your old photos, aerial photos and PUDs didn't show the eminent domain that the railroad just did within the last 2 years and completed a new rail spur coming around the back of our building on the northwest corner of it, where they took part of our property. So as we look at, I was under the initial understanding, not knowing, working with the contractor, that they wanted planting in the back where we're putting the new parking and where the new expansion would be. And I'm like, why would we want to put planting in a place that we're going to tear it up in 4 years for the next phase of our expansion and have to come ask for the variance at that point? Because we were told we'd have to come get permission to remove the trees if we had to plant them based upon this. So that's, like I said, when you look at the front, we're pretty much maxed out on where we can plant. I mean, obviously you can throw more trees or plants in, but if you look at the big, long green space that's adjacent to Portland Avenue, that is all a drainage ditch for design, water flow and drainage, and the rest of it has all utilities. The first 4 or 5 feet coming off of Portland Avenue onto the grass has got all the underground utilities and everything running through that. So there's nowhere in that green space we could plant any additional trees. And when we look at what we've got up against the building and everywhere else, we feel we've got adequate foliage there. What you don't see is what's up under the windows in the front with all the bushes and stuff from the aerial view. You can only see the trees that were per the original plan.
I realize that, these ordinances and landscaping things or requirements and things are there for a very good reason, and a lot of times I completely agree with them. I actually agree with what you're saying, having driven the building a number of times, and he did include a photo so you can see it. I drive past this building pretty frequently. It's very nicely landscaped in the front. It's not as if there's nothing here except, barren land. And there's also a certain practicality to these industrial sites where landscaping for when you are moving trucks and things like that becomes more of a hindrance, and that's certainly not the intent of the ordinance. So I certainly understand the practical rationale for granting the variance here, and I certainly support the application because of that. So I would move approval unless there's some objection.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the application. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Item 5, case number 14-126, request of Lighthouse Charter School for a variance to permit metal buildings located at 4906 South Santa Fe Avenue.
Hello, I'm Carlisha Williams. I'm the Regional Vice President of Lighthouse Academies.
I'm Jason Ridings with Beck Design Architects. We've been hired by Lighthouse Charter Schools to help them get their permits and make sure everything is done according to city rules.
Just go ahead and speak to your application. Tell us what you want to do.
Okay. Mr. Anderson filed for a variance related to the outside cladding of 2 modular buildings that the Charter School has purchased. As you may see in your staff report, the school had made plans to build a permanent school facility at the Crossroads Mall. Those plans fell through late last spring, and so they had 240 students and families enrolled in the school system for this coming semester, this fall semester, and so they scrambled to find, I think it's four temporary buildings that they could use and install at the property that would accommodate those children in the short term. Now, they have a plan in place to build a permanent home at one of the department stores at Crossroads Mall, and that is happening as we speak. But these buildings have been installed. They've been built on foundations, and they're actually significantly nicer than anything that's on the property at present. The buildings came from a company out of town who had already installed them with metal panels. They're being used right now, and the variance we seek would allow the school to use these buildings for the next couple of years until they can get the permanent school in place without going to the expense of installing EFS on the outside of the building to comply with the PUD. Is that okay? We felt like the EFS would be an enhancement to the portable buildings. However, it would be an enhancement beyond what's already on the property. It's estimated about a $35,000 cost to go in and remove the outside cladding of the buildings and put the new EFS on. It's kind of just a wasted cost at this point. Our request is that we be granted the variance and that the school is allowed to use these buildings for the next 24 months, and that after that, and that's actually the term of their lease, so they don't have any plans to renew that lease with this company. So when that lease expires, the plan is that those buildings will be taken back, and the permanent school would be at that point already built and be ready to be used.
And I'm assuming the reason that the buildings are in place and in use in advance of the variance request is because school went into session and you learned late?
Correct. So school was supposed to begin session on August 3rd, and we expedited that process trying to get our scholars in, and we started on August 31st as students were coming from the district, and we wanted to ensure that they got in and got that academic experience started as soon as possible. So yes, we were working under a really tight timeline after we found out that Plaza Mayor was not zoned appropriately to be a school site.
And the 2 years, since you're remodeling an existing building, the 2 years is a realistic timeline?
Yes, actually, the philanthropic partners that we're working with in regards to the Plaza Mayor site are already making moves and progress towards schools being in there within this upcoming year, and so 2 years is definitely realistic for us to make this happen.
Is there anybody present here to speak on this matter? Questions?
I don't have any. I think it's reasonable. I think given the temporary time frame, I don't have a great objection. So I would move for approval conditioned on the time limitation of 2 years.
Have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You're approved. Good luck. If there's no other business before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. We are adjourned.